There's a BBC journalist called Simon Reeve who is uploading a series of episodes called Scandinavia with Simon Reeve. And towards the end of episode 3, he is talking to a Muslim migrant as well as a Thomas Monberg, a politician who is from the coalition government that is ruling Denmark. And he is representing two clashing perspectives over migration. But what is really interesting with this, first of all, I'm really amazed that they kept it. Because he's literally getting destroyed. There's just no way of putting about it more diplomatically. He's literally getting wrecked. So I'm surprised that they left it. But also the way that he frames things in several clips from this video and from this episode is simultaneously tragic, but sometimes it's very funny as well. Right. So I want to show you some parts of it and discuss the ideas as well as the framing. Let's start with the first one. Yes, let's play it. So he's talking to some Danish people there, says it seems well, but there are problems.
But it would be wrong to think there are no problems in Denmark. All this social cohesion means outsiders can sometimes feel unwelcome. If you don't conform here, it can feel uncomfortable.
So that's the first
go away, then. Simple as. All this social cohesion for the people who've been here for, thousands of years. Someone who's just got off the boat might feel a bit uncomfortable. All right, bugger off then. Go wherever you feel comfortable.
If it's peaceful and they like to sing their own cultural songs. And look, hey, there's happiness and smiles and joy. But I feel uncomfortable.
There's a problem with social cohesion. There's lack of chaos.
There was a shocking...
Where's your chaotic sentiment?
The BBC were horrified by the shocking lack of grenade attacks and grooming gangs they encountered while they were in Denmark.
Also, if you don't conform here, it can feel uncomfortable. I've heard that...
Conform there, then.
I have heard that the Danish are one of the least demanding cultures as far as integration is concerned. Literally, not much is asked from you. Just don't bomb people and break the law.
Well, that's a pretty tough order for some.
Yeah. For many in a country that they're used to bombing each other, stabbing each other to death or running away from it, that is quite difficult. But hey, look, a white person. Sorry.
So
we can't have that.
In a European country. Can you have that anymore?
So
I say that as someone who's not necessarily completely white, but there we go.
So what happens is that he's picking a Muslim activist to talk to, and my impression is that this activist isn't necessarily representative of the population. He seems to have been there from 1975. He has 4 children, lawyers, engineers, a psychologist, and also someone else who is a social worker and right now studying. I don't know if this is exactly representative, but perhaps the BBC is trying to make some cases.
I just want to go back to it just for one moment, because the whole presentation of the BBC, the perspective that was being put forward when he was saying about all the social cohesion, was this idea that Denmark shouldn't really be a country for Danish people. Right?
Because non-Danes would feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it should be a country for anybody who wants to show up in Denmark and presumably take advantage of the social welfare system. No, I believe that Denmark should be a country for Danish people and broadly European people if they're happy to take them.
Yeah, it's a country you can go and shop and steal from if you want and have no consequences.
So there's rise in crime and terrorism, as this person says. And in response to this, the government is taking some measures. Let us look at this, the next clip.
I am, but still we are not accepted as an equal in the country.
Partly in response to the crime wave in Sweden and terrorism here, Denmark's taken a really tough line on integration, not just encouraging it, but pushing it. Islamic full face coverings are banned. The government even introduced what was called a ghetto law, aimed at preventing neighborhoods being dominated by so-called non-Western immigrants, along with high crime and unemployment.
Let's get out. Yes. Can have a look.
One designated ghetto was the multicultural neighborhood Mjolnerparken, where Mohammed raised his family.
What's particularly...
So he is taking them to that, as he says, multicultural ghetto neighborhood.
Which looks notably more run down than some of the other places.
But I don't understand, because he says it's a multicultural ghetto, and he laments the ghetto laws that essentially destroy ghettos, but also laments the loss of multiculturalism. You can't have a multicultural ghetto because ghettos are by definition monocultural. Now, that's...
A multicultural ghettos. Oh, my word.
Yeah, can you imagine the diversity?
I know, in the diversity of ghettoism.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the ghetto for non-European people. Really, that's what I think. That's all it really means is there. And you know what? If the Danish government wants to prevent there being things like ethnic enclaves set up in their cities,
like Paris,
like Paris, that push the natives out of their homes that they've lived in for who knows how long, and stops it from being completely unrecognizable in 5 years' time. Good. Again, Denmark is a country that was established by and for Danish people, and they have every right to protect that.
So now he's talking about what he says the greatest social experiment of the century, which I think it's a bit hyperbolic.
Greatest.
Yeah, let's listen.
People were forced out of their homes. The apartments, houses, homes they lived in were sold off. Many were refurbished. New families have moved in. It's been described as the social experiment of the century. It's also been described as social policy with a bulldozer.
No one's ended up homeless,
giving
but
both
Mohammed's
sides
family and thousands more from other ghetto areas have been or will be rehoused in predominantly white areas. With the stated aim, they'll become more integrated into Danish society, with access to better jobs and education. And people, including those from very different cultures, will absorb Danish liberal values. Reports identified early language skills as key to...
So one of the issues is that the stated aim of this policy is integration.
It's forced integration, by the sounds of it, which we've seen in America. It doesn't work. It just ruins the neighborhoods that they go into, frankly.
I don't think it works. And there's always the question of number when it comes to policy and integration. But yes, I do think that this isn't perhaps the best way to go about it.
Never be more than 3, 4, 5% maximum in a country.
I share your skepticism about it, but you know, this is the policy. And then he's going to talk to Thomas Monberg, who is a politician who literally schooled him in democracy and all sorts of bits. But let us look at one thing that some people haven't talked about, because there have been clips of this that have gone viral on X. But try to look at how he's trying to frame family values when he's talking to Thomas Monberg.
And including parties called the Liberals and the Moderates.
We've got football tops here.
Yeah, it's football over there.
This is your party?
Yes, it is.
Look at this, is very nuclear family, very traditional old poster here.
Yes, it is.
Family values.
Family values, but the children has to be safe and nicely home from school.
It's interesting you have this in your office, because your party is unusual from our perspective. You're quite left-wing, economically, and on many issues, workers' rights, etc.
Yes.
But traditional cultural values, family values as well.
Yeah.
What, you mean like the Labour Party was when it founded itself?
So, Thomas,
It's very unusual. It's very unusual for the BBC.
Listen, I know what he wanted to say, which was that he wanted to say, "Oh, this is strange that you've got this picture up in here. I mean, it's happy families, but they're all white. This makes me think of Nazis."
Yeah.
So you're very left-wing economically, but you seem to be quite right-wing socially. Do you not think that you're a Nazi? That's what he's trying to say.
You want a family. You're quite unusual from our perspective.
Yeah.
You're an
quite
anomaly.
unusual because you've got a family.
Yeah.
You believe in them.
Do you think?
Come to Britain where we just don't believe in families at all.
Do you not think that white families having white children might have been what Adolf Hitler wanted? Have you considered not doing that?
Perhaps he was breathing.
I mean, this reminds me.
Don't breed white children, you.
This kind
in
of
a white country.
I'm sorry. This is a form of like stochastic terrorism, almost in the same way when Channel 4 sent that disabled black guy to Orania in South Africa to tell them all off for trying to have a governing community that actually functioned in South Africa. You're not allowed to do that in South Africa. Everywhere has to be as run down as Johannesburg. It's terrible that they come into these countries and these communities and say like, no, you're not globalized enough. You're not multicultural enough. You need to change
You're bad.
the system of governance
You're
that
evil.
doesn't work anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Because social cohesion is a problem, Harry.
Yeah, clearly.
You don't have enough problems for the state to intervene and fix, justifying the Leviathan state.
Well, yeah, that's
background.
True. Even though Denmark has quite a big state, as far as I can tell, they just do what the people want them to do.
But also, if you pay close attention to the music that's behind it, and I think it would be a good idea if we increase the volume for our videos. If you pay close attention, this is the kind of music that people put in documentaries when they want to show something childish. So he's trying to show the one person who says, well, I disagree with his policies, and he's putting very emotional music behind it. And he's talking to this guy who says, yeah, I believe in traditional family. I believe in traditional family values. And the music behind it is just completely trying to frame this person as, someone of childish thinking.
Of course,
you're very childish if you want the traditional family.
Of course, because the grown-up adult thing to do would be to castrate your children as young as possible, correct? That's what this man from the BBC wants.
So we have here another part. I'll show you. There are 2 minutes here that are absolutely priceless, because he's asking the politician, can you please explain me ghetto laws? And the whole thing is incredibly funny, because he's asking him several questions and he just doesn't shy away from telling me, yes, absolutely, yes. And some of them are
Giga Chad, yes.
Some of them are really tough questions from a UK perspective. You wouldn't expect someone from here give such answers. In fact, they would basically give the exact opposite answers. So let's watch this here. He is asking him to explain ghetto laws.
Can you explain this ghetto law to me?
We started to see some areas where there were a lot of foreign people living, and the state of education was lower, and more children didn't go to school, and that was something we had to do something about.
But why focus on this phrase non-Western? Why that? Because it sounds like it's targeted at... It sounds like it's targeted mainly at Muslims. In truth.
But it's not. That's because of the culture we have in Denmark. And that's about equality of gender, that's equality of education, welfare, and all that.
Are you saying that non-Western people outside that definition, have less awareness or understanding of those core values?
We can't accept that a girl growing up in a society in Denmark doesn't have the same rights as every other girl.
So you're saying this is an attempt to enforce and impose fundamental Danish values?
Yes, because we want everybody that lives here have a good life.
But what you're talking about is painful for some people. You are literally requiring people to move out of their homes. You are creating a lot of trauma for some people.
I don't think you always can say trauma, because not many are getting evicted.
But I've met somebody who who's crying because of what's happened.
Yes, I know. If you have to have a society as ours, you have to be aware of what's keep us together than what's taking us apart. And the thing that could take us apart is if people were living parallel to each other in restricted areas where there only were people of non-Western.
So basically the journalist has an issue with the term non-Western. And the politician, Thomas Momberg, tells him essentially, we are Danish, we want to be Danish. If people come here, they should integrate, they should play by our rules. That's simple as.
It seems pretty obvious to me. If you want to come in and get a season ticket for Man United and you want to support Man United and you want to come into the back of our club and shake hands with the Man United fans, don't wear a City fan club don't wear a City hat, and don't start chanting Manchester City on your hands and knees in the middle of the club. No,
I think the best part is that he's having to explain all of this to Mr. Journalist Man like he's a child. He's like, you can see the confusion on his face, like, why isn't this getting through to you, mate? But this is the simplest thing in the world.
But also,
what do you mean non-Western? You can see like the gears turning where he's like, because they're non-Western, mate. What are you on about? Is it that difficult?
He clearly isn't a professor in Oxford, where these main people from BBC, Oxford and Cambridge go, where they have a question about non-Western. Is everybody in the world?
Yes.
That's it. We're all the same.
Sometimes people from universities have a tendency to fall victim to ridiculous notions. But still, what he's really sincere about is that policy benefits some people and doesn't benefit some other people. He's absolutely honest about this, whereas the BBC journalist is trying to somehow create the illusion that there aren't people who are crying on the other side, people who are victims of these multiculturalist policies that sometimes manifest in ghettos being built, but also they can manifest in rising crime and terrorism. But he has a secret here, Harry. He has a secret.
Really?
And he's asked, we have these statistics that
our government could never consider.
They could never comprehend. They need to be initiated into the internal circle of people.
Is he going to announce the secret to us now?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the drum roll now. He's going to tell us the basic thing of how this works and how people in Denmark don't lose their trust in Danish democracy.
Okay.
Now, could that be an idea? Could that be an issue of not turning their backs to the public? I don't know. Just maybe. But he is citing some statistics, and I mean the journalist, according to which non-Danish people are overrepresented in violent crime across several categories, over 6 times relative to native Danish people. Let's listen to what he says here and how he...
Unlike other European states, the government here publishes controversial and worrying crime statistics. They revealed men from some non-Western backgrounds are as much as 6 times more likely to commit violent crime than white Danes. The facts horrified voters.
You release crime statistics showing the nation of origin of people convicted of violent offences. Why have you been doing that?
That's because a lot of people were feeling this. And if we want to solve ordinary people's problems, then we have to know which problems there are in society. And there were problems in society. And these high amounts of crime rates reduces the trust or breaks the trust between people living in our country. And that's very, very important for us.
The coalition here says by listening to the concerns of all voters on immigration, they maintain trust. Immigration's been reduced. Integration is required.
If you want people,
enormous pulsating brain
if you want
now.
people to trust you,
First at Oxbridge, I got a PhD. I worked for the BBC,
But
and suddenly
Fraser Nelson,
listening to the people.
Fraser Nelson told me that democracy was pretending to listen to them and doing the complete opposite afterwards. How can this be democracy?
That's what I did my PhD on in Oxford. Don't listen to the people, just only listen to the BBC.
Just listen to the people. Makes some promises to address their concern, honor your promise, and then magic, they're not going to turn their back on you. They're going to trust you. I don't know. I just couldn't figure that out.
Oh, I don't know.
And again, he's like a child having everything, like basic concepts explained to him, where he's like, so you publish the statistics about... Why do you do that? Why are you telling the truth to your citizens?
Because people cared about it. And now he's talking about... And now he's going to talk about England and the UK. Oh. And he is contradicting himself because simultaneously he says, and I want you to focus on this especially
all right.
when he's framing it, he says, we are a multicultural country, but the politicians ignore people's concern about migration. The way I think the way he frames it is just intention.
Okay.
Let's just look at this clip.
They maintain trust.
That's the last.
Immigration's been
clip.
reduced. Integration is required. Asylum's now seen as temporary, rather than a route to permanent settlement.
I think sometimes in the UK there's been this feeling that people want something difficult. They want less immigration into the country, for example. And a lot of our politicians haven't really liked that view, and often they've kind of ignored what people want. We've tended to believe as a country more in multiculturalism. I sense in Denmark you don't really follow that path. You believe more in a Danish way, in Danish values, in monoculturalism almost.
It depends on how you look at it, because if you look on it in a culture where you can practice your own beliefs, that's allowed in Denmark. But you have to agree it's in here that the laws in Denmark are made, and it's the...
So basically, just play by the laws and you're going to be okay. How difficult is that going to be?
Listen to our culture, deal with it, but it is, yes. Exactly.
And there are several reports you can see about crimes. You see here, there's an article from the European Conservative. There are Statista website. The Statista website has reports on crime in Denmark, but also the Danish Ministry of Justice had several reports. You can just go in and just track. But I'm going to give you some stats. A report citing the Ministry of Justice numbers as of October 2024 indicates that non-Western migrants, who make up a smaller percentage of the Danish population, around 8.4%, account for a significantly high proportion of aggravated violence, 14%, and rapes, 24.3%, among convicted individuals. Second-generation non-Western migrants, while making up an even smaller part of the population, 2.2%, they are reported to be responsible for 15.6% of violent crimes and 8.1% of the rapes, and combined perpetrators of a non-Western background, immigrants and descendants, are stated to commit 29.6% of violent crimes and 32.4% of rapes, despite representing only 10.6% of the population.
So almost a third of all of those crimes.
And I'll end this segment by mentioning the part where Simon Reeve talked about Sweden, where he talked to a Somali second-generation migrant. And she essentially said that all of this is economic. She knows all about crime, but most people do it just for money. So the message in a nutshell is we want more money. Now, I think that this is one of the things that people should bear in mind, because the releasing crime statistics by ethnicity and by nationality and by race and by everything is not enough on its own, because there are all sorts of conflicting narratives that can be given of the data. Some data stress culture as well as economic factors. Other paradigms, especially leftist ones, are talking about purely economic reasons of it. And essentially what they're saying, some groups are our political allies. If they're overrepresented in crime, that is an economic issue. So how are we going to address crime? We're going to address crime by increasing taxation overall and giving more benefits to our allies, while being very hostile against our political enemies. I really think that this was a breath of fresh air, and I think that the Danish politician he's just talking to a 5-year-old.
It was nice to hear him talk complete sense. And when you point out things like this, what this is, we're poor, so we have to commit crime and murder each other. That's blackmail. That's a threat. Give us more money or we'll keep doing this. And then you give them more money and they keep doing it anyway. So I guess you just didn't give them enough money.
No, they'll keep doing it until you actually give them your nice house wherever they are, and then they'll kill you anyway. Yeah. I mean, that's the message of Clockwork Orange. Yeah, there we are. Nice white liberal comes in, brings in a complete lunatic who rapes and kills his wife, and then it goes off years later, brings him out of prison, says I can rehabilitate him, and then he ends up killing him anyway. So it's the same. You just keep giving violent criminals and people who wish to kill for money, and they'll still do it anyway. So the only answer to that is lock them up or deport them or not let them in the first place.
And enforce the law.
Enforce the law. And it doesn't matter what country you're from, really. Even indigenous people born in Britain when I was growing up, committed crime, they should go away in prison for a long time. I don't care whether you are committing any particular offence of a violent nature. But here, to turn around and say, it's just for money purposes, give me more, otherwise I'll continue doing it. It's unacceptable.
If
you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.